Welcome everybody to ITS 208 Graphics and Visual Computing. My name is Julius, your instructor. Today we're going to have our very first lesson about Adobe Photoshop. For this lesson, we're just going to get started with Adobe Photoshop and how to use it. Adobe Photoshop is an imaging and design application. It is a benchmark in the world of professional digital image solutions. It's a powerful photo and image editing application. First and foremost, Photoshop is not a drawing program. The real power of Photoshop is in working with existing images. Typical tasks include treating and manipulation, compositing, converting to different formats, printing, etc. So just like I said before, Photoshop is not intended for creating logos, illustrations, etc. That is intended for Adobe Illustrator. Photoshop is combining two or more images into a composite, basically combining multiple images into one, creating a Photoshop composite. That's the real power of Adobe Photoshop. So to start with, we'll start with the minimum system requirement for Adobe Photoshop 2025. For optimal design experience, the minimum requirement for Adobe Photoshop 2025 is 8 gig or more RAM, 10 gigabyte or more disk space for installation, that's for 32-bit, and 3.5 gig or more disk space for 64-bit. It requires Intel Core 2 or AMD Athlon 64 processor, 2 GHz or faster. 1280 by 800 pixels, that's for high definition, with 8, 16, and 31-bit color, 1.5 MB or more of dedicated video RAM. So these are minimum system requirements. That means this is the base PC capability um, that, that will allow Adobe Photoshop to run. So if you have any less than this system requirement on your PC or laptop, it may be a little bit hard to run Adobe Photoshop. Start with setting up a document. Setting up document correctly from the start will make your job much easier as you work through your project. This will require some planning in advance. For example, if your final output will be a brochure, you have to set the exact paper size and set up your document to be horizontal or double-sided. To create document, just click File and View. This will open the document dialog setup box. I'm going to show it to you. So this is Adobe Photoshop 2025. It may be a little bit different on your end if you're using an older version of Adobe Photoshop, but regardless, the controls should be the same. So to set up a new project, click New or File and then New. This is the dialog that will allow you to input all the necessary information that will be required on your project. So first, you can either use the presets on the left side, but if you can't find anything under the Save, Photo, Print, and so on, you can always write it all right here. Okay, start with input your file name. In this case, let's call it sample Photoshop file, and let's set the width to 8.5 inches and 11 inches. We will set the orientation to portrait. That means the canvas should be standing, and then we will set the resolution to 300 pixels per inch. That means there are 300 pixels in one single square inch, and normally the normally it should be 72, but if you want to add more resolution to your project, then the more the better. So the usually it should be around 300, 150 to 300. That's the good spot. Any more than that, you don't necessarily have to do that. Again, 72 is fine. That's the standard, but increasing it will allow you to add more resolution to your graphics. Again, 150 to 300 should be good enough. And then the color mode, depending on how you are going to use it for. So in this case, we will focusing only with these two color modes, the RGB and CMYK color rather. If you can remember back in when we discussed Adobe Illustrator, RGB colors are for web contents. That means it's digital, and then CMYK color is for prints. So, for example, if you're just creating a design to be uploaded in the internet or on a website, then you will be using RGB. But if you'll be creating a graphics for print, like tarpaulins, posters, etc., you'll be using CMYK. RGB stands for red, green, blue. These are the three colors of on most LCD screens, and then CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Those are the inks of printers. That's why RGB is for screens, CMYK is for print. So for in this case, we'll just use RGB. We'll set the background color to white, and then just keep everything else as is. And then click create. Now, the, you can also open an image from a disk or from your drive, especially if you're trying to edit an existing photo. And all you need to do is just click File and then Open. Then navigate to the location where your image is saved, and then choose the image file and then click Open. So, for example, this we're going to edit the photo. I'll just click File and then Open. Look for a photo that you want to edit. In this case, I'll go to pictures, to my pictures rather, and then I'm going to select this particular photo, and then all you need to do is click on that and then click open, and then here, it's ready to be edited. Saving a file. To save your project, select File, Save As, type the file and select the file format. If you want to save your file for future editing, select Photoshop Project or .psd. To save a file for print or web content, select the JPEG, PNG, GIF, etc. depending on your requirement and how you're going to use it. Again, if you're going to use it for future editing, that means it's just going to be saved so that you can edit it in the future. You're not done yet, you're going to save it as PSD. But if you're done and if you wish to use it for anything you want to do with it, use JPEG, PNG, GIF, etc. In this case, let's say for example, we're done editing this photo and we want to save it so that we can upload it to the internet. Click File and then Save As, and then here you can find the different format that you want to use. So most of the time you'll be using JPEG and PNG. Okay, PNG can most are mostly useful when you're trying to save an image that doesn't have any backgrounds. If you want to remove the background of your picture, be sure to save it as PNG. Other than that, you may want to use JPEG or etc. And click Save. So in this case, let's add input the file name. I'll keep the same file name that I used before, and then add the word edited, and then click Save. Now, upon saving it, it will require you to select the quality, etc. What I usually do is I move the slider to the maximum, and then set the format to baseline, meaning it's standard. It will not compress anything on your image, and click OK. Next is familiarizing the workspace. For the next lesson, we're going to familiarize the workspace in Adobe Photoshop. A workspace can be edited according to however you want it to look like um, depending on your preference. But these are the common workspace or the common things that you can find in a standard workspace or in the default workspace rather. So this is the layout of the default workspace of Adobe Photoshop. It's called the Essentials. First, you'll see the menu bar. The menu bar will be at the top, and then the menu bar contains all the main functions of Photoshop, such as file edit, image, layer, select, filter, view, window, and help. Basically, it's just all the main functions in Adobe Photoshop and how Adobe Photoshop will run. And then we have the options bar. The options bar contains additional control of the selected tool. The options change as different tools are selected. So in this case, for the options bar, this will change depending on which tool you clicked, right? So basically, it just gives additional option to the tool that you select. Next is the file name tab. The file name tab, this one right here, basically it's just a tab. You can add multiple tab. You can that means you can create, you can open or you can start multiple projects at the same time, and each of those projects will, you can find it right here, like a tab, like a browser tab. Just like browsers that you can open multiple websites at the same time, and then those websites will be grouped, will be separated into a tab. Same with Adobe Photoshop, you can open multiple projects, Adobe Photoshop projects at the same time, and each of those projects will be separated in this tab. Then we have the toolbar. The toolbar, this one right here, the toolbar contains most of the major editing tools for easy access. Basically, anything that you want to do with your project, you can find it here. From painting, from adding colors, from selecting, from moving objects around, you can find it in the toolbar. And of course, the canvas. The canvas, this displays the project being worked on. So imagine this as your canvas or your paper, or basically anything that you put inside this will be displayed as soon as you save your project. And then palettes. Palettes contains, these are the palette, rather. Um, Palettes contain functions that help you monitor and modify images. By default, palettes are stacked together in groups. The usual visible palettes are Navigator, Color, Histogram, and Layers. You can add more by going to Windows in the menu bar. So these are the default palette. But when I work with Adobe Photoshop, it may look a little bit different because I customize my palettes. To add more, if you wanna do something and you can find it in your palette, go to Window and then select anything that you want. Alright, so let me to show that. Okay, so this is the default Adobe Photoshop palette. And what do you usually see? In this case, the color swatches, gradients, patterns, etc. And then we have properties, adjustments, libraries, and then at the bottom we have the layers, channels, path. And again, if you wish to add more, you can always add more. This is also an additional palette. It's just being minimized. We'll keep it minimized to save space. So we have the histogram, we have characters, we have paragraphs, etc. If you want to add more, select one window and then choose whatever you want to add. In this case, we will add brushes, and that way we have more control on the brushes basically. So what the palette is for? Adding more option, adding more. It's basically monitoring or adding more options to or control to the tool that we use. Remember, in the toolbar, this will change depending on the depending on the tool that you select. Basically, it just makes you control or however you want to set it. The the palettes will allow you to control the entire project basically. All right. Okay, very next, we're going to proceed with palettes. Palettes contain functions that help you monitor and modify images. By default, palettes are stacked together in groups. The usually visible pattern palettes are Navigator, Color, Histogram, and Layers. You can add more palettes by going to Windows, Windows Bar, just like this. Navigator, it's the first one. Navigator allows you to resize and move the objects within the project. To navigate, move around the red navigation box, drag the slider, click on zoom in, zoom out, or specify the magnification percentage. In this case, I didn't open, as you can see, there is no navigator, but we can always add it. So window and navigator, this is the navigator. So inside the red box, that is the visible part in your canvas. So right now, since the entire picture is covered by the red box, that means the entire picture is visible as well. You can always slide this. You can always use the slider to zoom in and zoom out, and then you can use the red box. You can let's try to increase the size a little bit. Okay, we can zoom in, and then once you zoom in enough, you can move the box. Just click and drag it to move around the object, or you can put directly. You can input directly the level of magnification. I set it to 100%. Next, we have the color, the swatches, and styles. Alright, so we're going to skip this part right here, but the most important one is the color palette displays the current foreground and background colors and the RGB values of these colors. Use the slider to change the colors or choose a color from the spectrum of colors displayed in the color ramp at the bottom of the palette. So, although basically this is the color, you can either select it from here, or you can also, just like Illustrator, you can also select it here. So this part right here is the foreground, and the back is the background. And then history. The history palette stores and displays each of the action performed, allowing you to jump to any recent stage of image alteration. So the histogram basically will allow you to, for example, you've done a lot of things already, and that Control Z will not do it because Control Z only has limit. So if you want to go jump back to your previous actions, you can always find it in the histogram or in the history. Fortunately, we haven't done anything on this project just yet. So that means there are no history. But anyway, soon once we start, we will try to use this. Then layers. Layers let you organize your work into distinct levels that can be edited or viewed individually. Creating multiple layers let you easily control how your artwork rather, is printed, displayed, and edited. More details on layers will be discussed in the understanding layers lesson. Right. So in this case, the layer basically it allows you to overlap multiple objects, and that way you can control how they appear on the screen. So, for example, if you're combining multiple images together, you want one of those objects to be placed in front, and you want the others to be placed at the back. So, layers will allow you to control just that. So, the objects that you put at the top should be the objects that you'll see in the front of your project, and then the objects that you put at the bottom should also be placed at the back. Again, we will discuss it in our future lesson. Right, next is we're going to know the tools. The tools provide multiple image editing functions in Adobe Photoshop. Upon loading Photoshop, a sidebar with a variety of tools usually appear to the left side of the screen. These are called toolbox, right here. Now, depending on the version of your Adobe Photoshop, there might be some tools that have been added, or some of the tools has been um, merged, if that's the right word. And note that some of the tools contain a small triangle in the bottom right of the toolbox. These can be expanded to reveal similar tools. So the first part usually are for selection and measuring. For the second part is for retouching and painting tools. Third section should be for drawing and typing, and then navigation, and then color boxes and notes. Now let's take a look at the Adobe Photoshop 2020. So this may be a little bit different since this is 2025, but either way, it should be the same. Now let's try to understand the purpose of each of these tools. So for the first one, if you see this, now in this case, the marquee tool is currently placed at the second part, but for the meantime, we will follow this layout. We will start with this. This is called marquee tool. It selects an object by drawing a rectangle or an ellipse around it. Click the tool button, choose the rectangular or elliptical marquee, drag the marquee over the area of the image you wish to select, and that's it. So basically, in this image, the marquee tool will allow you to select a certain part of the image for whatever purpose you might want to do. Using the rectangle or right click, we have ellipse. We also have single row and single column. I don't see any purpose for these two, so we'll focus on the marquee, rectangular and elliptical. So the rectangular ellipse or marquee tool will allow you certain parts on the object using rectangles. Okay, that's it. And you can do whatever you want. You can either add colors on that part, just like that, or maybe you can move it around, just like that. Whatever you want to do. So basically, that is a rectangular marquee tool. Something with the ellipse basically allows you to do the same thing, but this time it will be using circle instead of rectangle. Next is the move tool, used to select and move objects on the page. Click on the tool and click on any object on the page you wish to move. And just like what we did a while ago, in this case, we will move this area. We'll just have to click this, and then it will allow us to move this area. Next, we have the lasso tool. Selects an object by drawing a freehand border around it. Click the tool button, drag and to draw a freehand border around the area of the image you wish to select. So it's almost the same as the marquee tool, but however, the marquee tool allows you to select an object with rectangle and circle. The, la- uh, the lasso tool, mostly in this case, allows you to select object using freehand motion. Freehand, like you're drawing on it. So in this case, I'm using mouse. So it might obviously it's not going to be very accurate, but I will try to trace the car, and whatever I clicked on will be selected. Obviously, this is very rough. I'm using a mouse, but I think you get the idea. So you can either move it around or whatever you want to do with it. And then polygonal lasso. It's almost the same thing. All you need to do is right click and then polygonal. However, it allows you to select objects by clicking and straight lines. So in this case, you will use straight lines, and then all you need to do is just click on the area that you want to select. This is probably good for selecting objects that have straight sides, not cars that have curves. But at least you get an idea. So again, it allows you to select objects with lines, with polygons basically. And once you're done, you can do whatever you want to do with it. And then we have the healing brush tool. The healing brush tool corrects small blemishes in scanned photos. Basically, it just allows you to remove certain areas, small areas from the object. So, for example, we will try to remove these small leaves. Um, all we need to do is select the spot healing tool. So we have remove tool, healing brush tool, spot healing tool. In this case, we will use the healing brush. So healing brush tool. Click on that one right there. Let's zoom in. And let's click on the object. Okay. The Okay, select the tool, hold down the Alt key, and left click on the base color you need to heal, then left click over the blemish. So click Alt on your keyboard, select this part right there. Sorry, click the area that is clear rather while clicking Alt, and then click on the blemish. Just like that. Basically, it copies the area that you just Alt clicked to this. Another example, we'll alt click here because this is clear. Once you're done, release the alt key and then click on the area that you want to clear out. Basically, it copied this area to this area. Another, I think for those kind of issues, I would suggest using either the spot healing tool or the remove tool. The spot healing tool will just allow you to click the area that you wish to remove, and then Adobe Photoshop will remove it for you. In this case, I will not do anything else. I'm just going to click, and then it will automatically remove it for you. So it's good for small blemishes like acne, etc., or small objects that you want to remove from your picture. Okay. Clone stamp takes a sample of an image and applies it over another image or a part of the same. So basically, it works just like the healing brush tool. So, for example, we will use. I wanna duplicate the headlamp, although this is not the best way to do it, but it's one way. So I wanna duplicate this fog lamp. Again, I'm going to select the clone stamp. I'm going to increase the brush. I'm going to click up, and then I'm going to pick, let's say, put it right here. So it cloned it. Although this might not be a very good idea most of the time because it will leave some marks just like that. And then we have art history. We're going to skip that. We have the erase tool. Uh, we're also going to skip that because it's not really useful that much. And we have paint bucket tool. Fills an entire area with a solid color of your choice. I don't really use it as much. Basically, it will just allow you to, for example, we will add a small color in here. We'll add new layer, and with the paint bucket tool, we will choose this yellow orange and then fill that. It will automatically fill the color, but this is not the right way. I'm going to teach you the right way soon. Grading color, it's the same thing, but this time it will allow you to add a gradient, so instead of solid color. So again, let's try, and then click gradient, click and drag. That's it, depending on the color that you want. For example, we will use this color right here, click and drag, and as you can see, we're able to add gradient. Again, blur tool, dodge tool. Basically, it just allows you to blur the some part of the object, and then dodge tool allows you to lighten an area. We have the direct selection tool. The direct selection tool selects path and path segment. However, we're not going to do that today. It's mostly useful for Adobe Illustrator, if you can remember. We have the type tool. The type tool is the same as with Adobe Illustrator. It allows you to add text. All you need to do is click on that, and then click on the area where you want to add the text, and add your text. You can control however you want to do it, however you want to make the text look. We're changing the font style, the font size, or you can also have more control with the character palette here, just like Adobe Illustrator. The pen tool. The pen tool draws a smooth edge path. So it's basically the same with how we use pen tool in Adobe Illustrator. Select the tool, click on the page, drag to draw a path, click and drag, and for points to modify the path. So just like what we did with Adobe Illustrator, the pen tool allows you to connect multiple points with or one straight line, or click and drag to add a curve. All right. Then once you're done, click connect to the very first anchor point, and then you can do whatever you want. You can either make a selection, okay, or you can also you can maybe draw a path. Just click stroke path, and then select brush. That's it. Okay, so that's pen tool. So we're not going to focus on that um, It's because we already discussed it in the previous lesson. We have the hand tool, allows you to move around within the page. The hand tool basically will allow you to move around the page. Or the shortcut key would be by holding using using the movement selection tool. Use space bar. Press the space bar on your keyboard, and it will automatically convert into hand just like this. Okay. Magnifying glass tool or control click control plus to zoom in, control minus on your keyboard to zoom out. Magnifying glass tool is the same thing. And then color boxes. So just like in Adobe Illustrator, we have the fill and stroke. In this case, we have the foreground and background color. We will discuss it more in the future and in the next lessons. But basically, the foreground allows you. Basically, it will allow you to add color to the foreground, meaning the area that is in the front of the object or on your project. And then the background is on. Basically, it will apply to the canvas itself. You can switch color clicking here, and the default color is white and black. And to quickly switch back to the default color anytime, just type D on your keyboard. Just like that. It switches back to the default color, which is black and white. Black for the foreground, white for the background. Alright, let's have a few practice activities. May not be different, might not be the same as this, but first is we're going to pick a color. Basically, picking a color will allow us to get the color from an object and use it for anything else. So to do that, let's say for example, we want to pick this particular color. All you need to do is, right now it's called color black. If you wish to use this particular color for any other uses, click the color picker and then click on that. It will automatically adjust it. So that's it for today.